Greetings, Rigil Agateides here, and today we have one of the worst team compositions you can get on Crash site. And the suit we're on is definitely not helping. This is the 450 cost general type, Barzam. While not as famous as the Slave Wraith in being one of the weakest mobile suits in games, the Barzam is not a lot better. Right off the bat, we hit the first problem on the Barzam. There's only two ranged weapons on this suit, your main weapon and Vulcan Pod. And that Vulcan Pod isn't even that great. While the Barzam comes with 4 different main weapon choices in the preparation menu, overheat your beam rifle or put your bazooka on reload, and you're quite literally out of options. Then we get to the second and bigger problem. Neither of these weapons stagger. The main weapon, the Barzam beam rifle, doesn't stagger unless charged. But if you choose one of the other main weapons that do, you're facing a 6-second cooldown between every shot, on top of their 12 seconds reload. This leaves the Barzam a choice between having no weapons half the time, or one that doesn't stagger half the time. But hey, at least there's one redeeming feature on the Barzam. A lot of nasty quick peeks together without Iwakanero, and that white dingo gym sniper just learned the hard way why he shouldn't stay in the same spot. With a very high range attack and a low hit rate, the Barzam can dish out sustained ranged damage like no other general types at its cost. That being said, the lack of staggers is really detrimental, and you're almost always better off picking a suit with less damage but any form of instant stagger instead. So it's perfectly understandable if you decide to avoid the Barzam like your own responsibilities just by looking at this miserable weapons lineup. But that only means it's a job for me. And to be honest, while the weapon lineup is truly tragic, the Barzam itself isn't that bad. With decent defense and higher base health than normal, the high range defense matches the playstyle well. Maneuverability isn't slacking either. With forced injectors and flight control program, it's easy enough to control, and it can get you to anywhere you need it to be if you push it hard enough. And that really is the essence of using this suit. You have to push it hard. Really hard. Forced injectors dodges the shell from the gun cannon, then we hit all 3 shots from our beam rifle on the way. Okay, I can't dodge 2 shots at once, but the bigger problem is that we can't roll over this ledge. Squeeze a 4th beam rifle shot in. Oh, how much I wish they just flattened this part out. The Barzam can do a lot more than you think, but only if you make use of every possible bit of its performance. Hitting as many shots possible with the beam rifle is an obvious one, but you also have to charge your shot at the right time so you get that one stagger off when it's needed, and know when to not do so you get more damage out of his rifle, or stagger the enemy with accumulated stagger instead. Then you also have to make the most out of its mobility. Forced injectors, flight control program, quick boost. Usually we only think of these skills as nice bonuses to have, but on the Barzam, you have to be using them to be a step ahead of the enemy to take the advantageous position, or even dodge shots with them as well. Too slow and you get caught in melee fights that you can't handle with no instant staggers. What the Barzam lacks in weapon performance, you're compensating for by pushing the basics to the maximum, making it a hell of a suit to use, but at the same time a wonderful suit for training up your skills. You're not just pushing the Barzam to its limits, it's also pushing you, the pilot, since you have no choice but to do that. But no matter how hard you push the Barzam, there's obviously a limit due to the terrible weapon lineup. You can't stop multiple enemies making a push together, which is where the map comes in. Crash Site is a map that's rather one-dimensional and with multiple clear choke points. By holding these choke points, it's harder to overwhelm the Barzam, while it rather quickly grinds the enemy down with the sustained damage and excellent range on the beam rifle. Oh, did you just expect me to not see you coming from behind? Easy melee combo and we bring the walking bull down. Melee damage is close to miserable due to the non-existent melee strength, but sure don't mind using it to get down. Okay, time to stop the rest of the enemy team. The Barzam comes with no uncharged instant staggers, but this only makes knowing how to get enough stagger accumulation even more important. The first way is of course to hit 3 uncharged beam rifle shots, but this is risky as it brings the beam rifle very close to overheating. The better way instead is to hit 2 shots and add in Vulcans. While the Vulcan pod doesn't match the performance of actual good sub-weapons and has only 2% stagger, it has a very high fire rate and a gigantic magazine. Add it to the 90% from 2 uncharged shots and you can reach 100% in no time. If you want to pull a down off with a melee and the enemy isn't looking, this is definitely better than a charged shot, since you can spend that time on Vulcans to close the distance on thrusters, and by the time you get the stagger, you're already in the enemy's face, giving the enemy no time to evade. Finally, we're losing the ground right in front of the enemy spawn. The stopping power of 2 evacs and a general type with no instant stagger really doesn't hold up. Last stand, someone marks out the enemy low health Zaku machinery and we'll pick that up before we go. Final 30 seconds, and as always, we'll go through the custom parts. While it is ultimately a player's own choice, what you really want to put on the Barzam are ranged damage and thrusters. The ranged damage is really the only thing you're on the Barzam for, otherwise you're better off with a Marasai or something like that. Thrusters are also a must, which I went all in on. You need it to make use of your forced injectors and flight control program, and to avoid all the close combat that this suit is bad at. That was a match with what looked like the worst team composition possible, but the results said otherwise. The Barzam may be unable to stagger unlike most general types, but the damage output is no joke. Maybe this matched our 2 evacs rather well, the 3 of us together forming a wall of sheer damage. Not suggesting that this is a good idea, just to be clear. Using the Barzam is about pushing everything else about the suit hard enough to cover up the lack in staggers. Do that and you'll be amazed how it changes your understanding over the smaller things in the game. That's it from me today. Not saying it will be comfortable on the Barzam, but you might just learn a thing or two if you give it a go. And the latest.